What's shaking, my friends? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Shay, and today we're going to talk about what I read in the month of April. So first, I want to say that I have had some drinks. I have had some toddies, if you will, and so this may be a very chaotic reading wrap-up because I am a little bit happy because of my toddies. And so this is going to be the inebriated wrap-up that you did not think that you needed. So first, let's go ahead and talk about April. April, I participated in Ramadan and TBR Blitz over at the Keymark Discord. I had such a freaking blast getting to meet everybody. And number one, we have to shout out the Beanie Barbarians, which was the team I was on TBR Blitz. We won! We won! Yes, 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 yes. Our beloved captain was Tori from Tori Talks, and I will link her channel down below. You should definitely check her out. But we had a great group of people, and we just had a right fun reading together and talking throughout the month. Let's talk about how my reading went. I think it went kind of disastrously, more so than other months. So first of all, I read a total of 8 books in the month of April. However, one of them I'm going to talk about in the month in my May wrap up because of how my month went out. I'm just going to talk about it in my May wrap up, but I'm going to talk about 7 books today, a total of 3,474 pages that I read in the month of April. Now, I think that April to me was a disaster. I got in some slumps. I got to the point where I just didn't want to read. I'd rather watch TV, which is crazy to me because I think it's just the type of books I was reading maybe I wasn't jiving with. So we'll just go ahead and we will jump right into it. So I pulled this book out of my jar. This is the only DNF I have this month. I got 170-ish pages in and I could not read this book anymore, and I pulled it out of my jar. And this is a book that I have been wanting to read forever, has been on my radar, has been on my TBR, and that's going to be City of Lies by Sam Hawk. This is not the book's fault, it's my fault. This book has an audience. We're following 2 characters, a sibling pair who the brother of the pair is a proofer, which means he basically is a taste tester to make sure that the noble people's food is not poisoned. His uncle is also a taste tester and to the chancellor, and he's a taste tester to the chancellor's son. And so his son does not think that he's going to have to reign for decades because he feels like his father is going to be the ruler forever. However, something happens and they get poisoned and the chancellor dies and the son has to take over. And so Jovan, I think is his name, has to take over as the primary taste tester. But also now there's a rebellion. And they didn't know anything of this was going on. There's a rebellion, there's a war, and basically their city is being attacked. And let me tell you the reason why I DNF'd this. So there's 2 points of view. There's Jovan and his sister, I can't remember her name at the current moment, Kalina. And it's going back and forth, POVs. And Kalina, I just don't think added anything to the story. So every time her POV would come up, I would be like, I'm really kind of bored. And also, it's taking place over a very short amount of time in a very isolated setting because they're trapped in the city because they don't know they're being attacked. And I was bored. I was bored. I didn't jive with Kalina as a character. I didn't jive with her POV, which is like 50% of the book. So I got so far in and I decided to DNF because every time I sat down to read the book, I would just fall asleep. And so I think this book was the primary portion of my reading slump of the month, but I just couldn't get into it. Not to say that this book doesn't have an audience. I mean, if you look at people that love this book, like Petrick and lots of other people, like this, you may find an audience for this. But as much as I wanted to love it, I just couldn't. But definitely check it out if that sounds interesting to you. Okay, now we're going to go from my lowest rated to my highest rated. I did not write anything less than 3 stars this month, because normally if I'm going to rate something 2 stars, I'm just going to go ahead and DNF it. But we will talk about my 3-star reads. So the first 3-star read I had this month, or the lowest rated 3-star read I had, was Along the Razor's Edge by Rob J. Hayes. This is a self-published novel that has been getting a lot of buzz. Rob J. Hayes has gotten a lot of buzz about his Never Die series and that kind of thing. And so I picked up Along the Razor's Edge. I'm not quite sure if this is meant to be YA or adult. Somebody tell me in the comments. I have no idea. But we're following our main character, and this is also kind of an isolated setting that I knew going into it that I probably wouldn't like. Because I don't know what it is about isolated settings, but there has to be enough intrigue to me and enough happening in that isolated setting to really grip me into the story. And this particular book just did not grip me like I wanted it to. So we're following our main character, Ascara, and she is a magic user. She is a sorcerer, and there was a battle, and they came out on the losing side. And so her magic was basically stripped from her, and she was thrown into this prison. And so for majority of the book, we're meeting some side characters. We're just getting these very deplorable prison conditions that she is experiencing, and then we are getting her trying to escape this prison. And while I see the potential of what was going on at the end of the book, the potential for book 2, I just didn't really jive with Ascara as a character. I didn't really jive with many of the characters in the book. I just found myself not connecting, not caring, and also just that isolated setting I didn't jive with. So will I continue on with book 2? I probably will, but if book 2 does not grasp me, I probably will go ahead and DNF the series. Alright, so next on the list is going to be a shocker because I had no intention of starting this series at any time soon, but that's going to be Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I did give this book 3 stars. This starts our journey with Fitz and the Fool, and I liked the book. I am one of those people that really jive with coming of age stories, but there still has to be a plot. So this book really doesn't have much of a plot. We are just following Fitz's journey. We are getting introduced to him as a character, and we're watching him grow up and kind of, getting some world building in the story as he grows. My problem with this was, number 1, there wasn't that much of a plot to it. Number 2, I had a very hard time. I like coming of age stories, but I have a very hard time keeping up with how old Fitz was as the story moved along, because it wasn't explicitly said in each chapter, like, okay, now he's this years old, or now this much time has passed, or now he's this years old. I guess you're supposed to imply it, but I need to know. I need to know in my coming of age stories exactly how old these people are. I didn't find Fitz insufferable. I'm assuming that, I know that a lot of people do find him insufferable, and so that's a lot of the issue, but I didn't. So I'm hoping in the future books that he'll grow on me and the story will grow on me. There is a trigger warning for animal things. So if you have an issue dealing with animal things, I would stay away from this book. Alright, so moving on to my 4-star reads is going to be Thrice by Andrew D. Meredith, which is another self-published book that I read this month. I enjoyed it. This is about the only issue that threw me off was because one of the main characters in this book, his name is Jovan. And I read this shortly after I DNF City of Lies, which also, one of the main characters' name was Jovan. So, I shouldn't have read 2 books back to back with the same character. So it kind of missed me there. But I enjoyed this book. It is about this boy who has magic, and our main character has been tasked with taking care of him. And he's not quite sure who the boy's parents are and why he's been asked to take care of him, but he is taking care of him. And then some things happen, some things ensue, and they know they are being basically tracked down by people that may not be the best of people, may be after them, due to the boy's magical powers. We're not sure as the story goes along, and it's a great relationship and great dynamic between our main character and the boy. And I really honestly liked all of the side characters, which, is why this book was 4 stars. I really liked the side character. I wanted more world building, which is why this wasn't exactly like my favorite book of all time, but book 2 is out. I think it came out in the month of April, so I'm looking forward to reading that sometime soon. Then I picked up on a whim A House of Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, and I've never read a T. Kingfisher, but now I have. So this is a little horror book. It's not very long. It is basically about this woman who goes to visit her mother, and she realizes right quick that something's not right with her mother. Her mother is suddenly not having the same beliefs she had. She's changing her design style of the house. She's acting very strange, and she is going to investigate what is happening with her mother. And so I don't like to say any more than that because I think it will spoil the story. But overall, I really, really liked the story. I gave it 4 stars. I liked the characterization in this story. It was just a great Southern Gothic horror novel. And I highly recommend if you like haunted house stories. The next book that got 4 stars for me is going to be Jade War by Fonda Lee. So I am not as crazy on this series as everyone else is. I enjoyed Jade City. I also gave that 4 stars. And I read Jade War this month, and I'm giving this 4 stars. I didn't like Jade War as much as I did Jade City, which I think is a very unpopular opinion. I think that the book is fine. The characters are what make the story, but there is a plot in here, but sometimes it meanders, and sometimes it just doesn't get to the point, and sometimes it just spends a little bit longer of doing something than I would have liked it to do. And so that's why this only got 4 stars for me. The characters definitely make it. The family definitely makes it. And of course, I'm going to read Jade Legacy hopefully in May, so I can wrap up the series and kind of give my final thoughts. Then, coming at 4 stars, I picked up City of Nightmares by Rebecca Schaeffer. This is a YA horror fantasy, and I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. So this follows our main character, and we are in a world where nightmares can come to life. If you go to sleep, if you dream a nightmare, you could turn into a nightmare when you wake up. And our main character has had a tragedy happen in her life where her sister did turn into a nightmare when she woke up, and basically she was a spider and she killed her father and some other people, and so she has just been traumatized from this event. And so she goes and works for this company, which kind of also provides her free housing and everything, and just she has some friends that she makes in this company, and her job title is basically trauma. She is going to go and provide trauma relief for these people that have either turned into nightmares or experienced some kind of wrongdoing or experienced some kind of traumatic event with a nightmare. And so she's not very good at defending against nightmares. She gets very scared. She's calls herself a coward in the novel, and something happens, and she goes and decides that instead of doing trauma right now and dealing with nightmares, she is going to go deliver the mail. And so she goes to deliver the mail. She has to get on the ferry. She has to cross the little body of water, but the ferry blows up, and she meets this vampire. And then the ferry blows up, and it's kind of a mystery of what happened to the ferry, who blew it up, what's really going on in Nightmare Land, what's happening. I thought the world building was so unique. The story is so unique. The world building was really great. It's a duology, and the second book comes out later this year. I highly recommend this. A lot of people are saying that this is a weird book, but I really loved it, and I loved the world, and I just thought because it was such a different from everything else that you read, it really grasped my attention, and I really loved it. My favorite book of the month is going to be The Bitter Twins by Jen Williams. So the first book in this series is The Ninth Reign, and I was lukewarm about The Ninth Reign, to be quite honest, and I had intentions of carrying on, but I wasn't sure when I was going to carry on because I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. And then I picked up the sequel because I'm trying to finish series this year, and I picked up the sequel, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved The Bitter Twins a lot more than I did The Ninth Reign, and I'm super, super stoked to continue on the series conclusion when I get to it. I love this series. If you don't know what the series, this is a gender blending sci fantasy that kind of involves aliens. And so there is this vampire-like race who is kind of dying out because they don't really drink human blood. They used to drink sap from this god tree, and unfortunately the god tree has died and the sap has died out, and so they had to switch to human blood. But unfortunately, human blood has caused them to be diseased and almost die out. So there are a lot of things going on in this world because we're trying to figure out, the Aborans is what the vampire people are called. They're trying to figure out how they're going to survive if another reign comes. So there's been 8 reigns where these alien race have come down and attacked them, and their godlike tree has produced these creatures that help them fight off the aliens so that they can win the war. However, with the god tree dead, of course, if a 9th reign happens, there will be no godlike creatures being created by the god tree because the god tree has died. And so guess what's going to happen? Guess what's going to come? Possibly a 9th reign. And what's going to happen in the 9th reign? So I am loving this story, and at first I was lukewarm on the characters in the first story. I liked them, but I wasn't like connected. But in book 2, I got so connected with these characters, and just the characters were a lot more fleshed out. The world was a lot more fleshed out, and I really got involved with the story, and I cannot wait to read the 3rd book and final book in the series. Okay, that's what I read in the month of April. Let's talk about real quickly, what I listened to and what I watched. So mostly in the month of April, I like to listen to music. I know that a lot of book readers have audiobooks on in their cars or whatever. I don't have time to listen to audiobooks in my car because like most of the places I go are 5 to 10 minutes away. So I only have 5 to 10 minutes to kind of get into if I was listening to an audiobook, it's just not enough time. So I listen to some music, and so I've been listening this month to Awake at Last, which both have their albums. So I discovered them a couple months ago, and so I've just been listening to their albums and kind of getting to know their music. Like I said, I don't get to listen to music often, so I don't listen to it very fast, but I have enjoyed their albums. And their albums, let's see, their most recent one that came out this year is called The Balance, and then in 2019 they had The Change. That's Awake at Last. I highly recommend them. I have enjoyed listening to them this month. Now let's go around to what I have been watching. So I finished up my Bones rewatch. I think I did that in March. So the Bones rewatch was done. So then I decided to pick up and watch Wednesday. I'd never watched Wednesday, and my husband and my daughter watched it, and they've been kind of wanting me to watch it. So I picked it up, I watched it, and I did love it. I would highly recommend it. I was kind of like worried because it was like, I felt like it was going to be like middle grade YA, but I really enjoyed it, and I think there's something for everybody to enjoy. I loved the actress, I loved the acting in it, and I just loved the overall mystery part of the show. Then I am still kind of going through and watching How I Met Your Father, which is the 2nd season. And I kind of watch an episode here or there because I'm not a big sitcom watcher. Like, it's not something that I want to sit back to back and binge. But I have enjoyed my time with How I Met Your Father and just kind of slowly going through the series when I have something to do, just clicking on and watching. I like those short sitcom-y episodes. And recently I have picked back up and started rewatching Psych. So I never watched the complete Psych series. I watched 4 seasons and then I quit watching. And so there's so much more content, and I loved Psych, and I don't know why I stopped watching it, but it was some years ago that I watched it. And so now I've started to rewatch that, and it's just something great to watch when I have the time. If you don't know, I also in April, of course, watched Seven Kingdoms Must Die, because if you don't know me, The Last Kingdom is my favorite series of all time. It has cemented itself. I don't care what you say about the later seasons, I still loved it. It's my favorite series of all time. The movie, I still loved it, even though I wish it would have been a show. Like, it needed to be more fleshed out, more drawn out. Obviously they could only do what they could do in such a short amount of time in a movie, and I cried. Of course I had like ugly tears, but I did watch the first season of The Last Kingdom again, and I'm gonna hold off on rewatching the entire series again, but it will be soon. I will be doing it, and I also want to read the books at some point very, very soon. I think I've talked enough. I have talked enough. So that's my month of April, and in May, if you don't know, I'm pulling books out of my lovely backlist thing so I can kind of maybe get my jars down to a reasonable amount of papers, and I'm having fun with it. So that's what we're doing in May. All right. What did you read in April? Did you have a good time? Did you read something that was exciting? Did you find a new favorite? Let me know down in the comments. Maybe I need to read what you're reading if you had a good time. And I will catch you guys later.